Welcome back. Today we are diving into a really profound text, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
It's definitely a heavy hitter.
Absolutely. I mean, this isn't just a book. It's written by a psychiatrist who actually survived the Nazi death camps Auschwitz, Dachau.
Yeah, and that context is just crucial, isn't it? He wasn't just recounting trauma. He was a trained observer, really analyzing what made the difference for survival in those horrific conditions.
Right. And the sources lay out the book's structure pretty clearly. First, you have his observations from the camps chilling, almost clinical, but deeply human.
And then the second part, which flows directly from that experience, is his therapeutic system, logotherapy.
So our mission today is to kind of cut through the weight of it all and extract the core insights, about resilience, purpose.
And how we can actually apply these lessons learned in the absolute worst circumstances imaginable to our own lives, our own maybe less dramatic but still real struggle.
Okay, let's unpack this. What Frankl observed about who lived and who died is truly startling. It really challenges basic assumptions about survival.
It really does. Because his central finding, well, it went completely against the grain of the big psychological theories of his time.
You mean Freud and Adler?
Exactly. Freud was all about the pursuit of pleasure, the pleasure principle. Adler focused on the will to power. Frankl came along and said, no, that's not our deepest drive.
What was it then?
It's the search for meaning, that fundamental human need. He called it the will to meaning.
And the evidence he gathered in the camps? Well, it was horrific, but it seemed undeniable.
Utterly. The sources confirm it often wasn't the physically strongest who lasted longest.
Oh, who was it then?
It was those who held on to some sense of future, some purpose, maybe thinking of a loved one or a project they felt they had to finish. Like Frankl himself with his manuscript.
They kept a sort of internal control, even when externally they had none.
Precisely. A sense of defiance, almost. Frankl talks about these moments, men comforting others, giving away their last scrap of bread.
Tiny acts, but huge in meaning.
Huge. They were statements. I am still human. I choose my response, meaning trumped basic physical need in those moments.
Which leads directly to that quote, the one that just resonates so powerfully. Frankl wrote,
Everything can be taken from a man but one thing.
The last of human freedoms, to choose one's own attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way.
That idea. Wow. That your attitude is the final freedom. It completely reframes power, doesn't it?
It does, because the flip side was also so clear. What happened when people lost that?
Devastation. The sources detail this psychological collapse Frankl saw. When hope died, when illusions about rescue were shattered.
They just gave up.
They plunged into apathy. He called it emotional death. They'd stopped moving, stopped washing, stopped reacting. They'd lost faith in any future, lost their why.
But Frankl himself found ways to resist that.
He did. His personal strategies were crucial. He focused intensely, mentally on two things.
His wife.
Yes, holding detailed, imaginary conversations with her. And also, painstakingly, recreating his lost medical manuscript in his head, word by word sometimes.
So love and creative work, those are his anchors.
Those were his sources of meaning, yeah. The camp became this terrible crucible where he proved, at least to himself, the power of those connections.
And that realization that suffering itself changes when it finds a meaning, when you can see it as maybe a sacrifice or some kind of achievement. That must have been huge.
That was the turning point, I think. He realized this wasn't just about the camps. This was a universal truth about human psychology.
Which is why he couldn't just leave it there. He had to build something from it.
Absolutely. So after he was liberated, he founded logotherapy, the third Viennese school of psychotherapy, it became known as.
Logotherapy, the name itself tells you a lot. Logos meaning reason.
Exactly. So the goal is, well, simple to state maybe, but hard to do. It's about existential analysis, helping a person find or maybe uncover their own specific meaning for their life.
And it's different from looking backwards, like traditional psychoanalysis.
Very different. Logotherapy is future-oriented. It's always asking, okay, what does life expect of you now? What is your task? It challenges you to look forward.
And Frankl saw this need wasn't just for people who'd been through trauma. He saw a problem in modern society, too.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Even with all our comforts, maybe because of them in a way, he saw this widespread psychological issue emerging. He called it the existential vacuum.
The existential vacuum sounds empty.
That's exactly it. It's this kind of spiritual hole, this feeling of inner emptiness. Frankl argued we've lost two things that used to guide us.
What are those?
Well, first, the basic animal instincts that tell us what we have to do to survive, and second, the strong societal traditions and values that used to tell us what we ought to do.
So without those automatic guides, we're kind of adrift, forced to choose constantly, but without a map.
Pretty much. Yeah. And that lack of clear direction, that emptiness, it manifests in all sorts of ways.
How would we see it today, like in our everyday lives?
Well, think about deep-seated boredom, that vague anxiety, or the ways people try to fill the void.
Like
Compulsive behavior, overworking, binge-watching, consumerism, addiction. Anything to distract from that inner sense of pointlessness. Frankl saw it as a major issue of the 20th century, and arguably it's even more relevant now.
He even had a specific name for a type of this emptiness kicking in.
Yeah, the Sunday neurosis.
Sunday neurosis.
It's that feeling of depression or anxiety that hits when the weekend comes, the structure of the work week disappears, and suddenly you're face-to-face with the lack of purpose in your own life.
Wow. So the same root cause loss of meaning that he saw in the camps, he saw it playing out in ordinary, comfortable lives.
Exactly. Just in a different, less extreme, but still corrosive way.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Frankl didn't just diagnose this existential vacuum. He actually gave us a framework, a practical way to find meaning.
That's right. He wasn't just descriptive. He was prescriptive.
Yeah.
He outlined three main paths.
3 ways to fill that vacuum. What are they?
So the first path is through creative work or doing a deed.
Meaning, like actually creating something or contributing in some way.
Yes. Giving something back to the world through your actions, your creativity, your work. It could be art, sure, but also building a business ethically, raising a family, contributing to your community.
Like Frankl rebuilding his manuscript in his head. That's a powerful example.
The ultimate example, maybe. Dedication to a task. The second path is different. It's more receptive. Experiencing something or encountering someone.
So appreciating beauty or connection.
Connection is key here.
Yeah.
Frankl put a huge emphasis on love.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah, he saw love as the only way to really grasp another person's deepest essence, their potential. And through loving them, you help them realize that potential.
That connection fueled him, even when his wife wasn't physically there.
Absolutely. That imaginary connection was a profound source of meaning, life-sustaining.
Okay, so creation and love or connection. Those make sense. But the third path that deals with the hard stuff, suffering.
Right. The third path is about our attitude toward unavoidable suffering.
Unavoidable suffering.
Yeah.
Like illness, loss, things you just cannot change.
Exactly. When you're faced with a situation you can't alter, Frankl says the challenge shifts. You can't change the circumstance, but you can change your attitude towards it.
And that changes the meaning.
It transforms the suffering itself. It turns tragedy into a kind of personal triumph, an achievement of the human spirit.
That sounds incredibly difficult. I mean, for everyday suffering like burnout or chronic pain, isn't there a risk that feels like pressure? Like you have to find some noble meaning in it?
It is a huge demand. Frankl never sugarcoated it. He wasn't offering easy comfort. He was just stating what he observed. If there is a meaning in life at all, he said, then there must be a meaning in suffering.
Because suffering is part of life.
Suffering is an ineradicable part of life. The achievement isn't necessarily fixing it, but the way you bear it. The dignity, the courage. Remember his example of the elderly man?
Whose wife had died.
Yes. His meaning became enduring his grief, precisely because it meant she had been spared that same pain. His suffering took on meaning through that perspective.
That reframing, it's powerful. It's not about liking the pain, but finding a why for enduring it.
Exactly. Which brings us to the sense of radical responsibility Frankl insists on. It flips our usual script.
How so?
We usually ask, what do I expect from life? Frankl said that's the wrong question. That leads to disappointment, neurosis.
So what's the right question?
What does life expect from me?
Ah, that's a big shift.
It's huge. It channels that Nietzschean idea he often quoted.
Those who have a why to live
can bear with almost any how. That's the core of it. Responsibility.
So the meaning isn't something abstract out there waiting to be found.
No. Life is constantly setting tasks, unique tasks for each of us. Our meaning comes from answering those tasks through right action, right conduct. Not just talk, but doing.
And logotherapy actually offered tools to help people do that, especially if they were stuck in neurotic patterns.
It did. One of the most fascinating ones is called paradoxical intention.
Paradoxical intention. How does that work?
It's really clever. It uses our uniquely human ability to kind of step outside ourselves, to have a sense of humor about our own anxieties.
Okay.
The basic idea is you intentionally try to do the very thing you're afraid of, or wish for the symptom you're trying desperately to avoid.
Wait, so if I'm anxious about public speaking, I should try to be more anxious?
Sort of. You might humorously wish for your hands to shake even more, or your voice to crack. You exaggerate the fear, almost invite it playfully.
Why would that help?
It breaks the cycle. Often the fear of the symptom makes the symptom worse, like performance anxiety. By trying to make it happen, ironically, you detach from the fear. The anticipatory anxiety loses its grip.
Can you give an example?
Frankl tells the story of a bookkeeper with terrible writer's cramp. He was terrified of his handwriting becoming illegible.
Okay.
So Frankl told him, okay, next time you write, I want you to try and produce the worst, most hideous scrawl imaginable. Show people what a truly awful writer you can be.
And what happened?
The man tried, almost as a joke, to intentionally mess up his writing. And as soon as he tried to fail, the cramp, the underlying anxiety, disappeared. The neurosis was short-circuited by humor and detachment.
That's counterintuitive, but brilliant. So how did Frankl view something like, say, clinical depression, which often feels like the ultimate state of meaninglessness?
He saw it as a profound challenge, stemming from what he called existential frustration.
Meaning.
It's when the gap between who a person currently is and who they feel they ought to be, or perhaps who they once hoped to become, grows too wide to ignore.
And that gap causes the depression.
It forces an awareness, often painful, of your life's trajectory, your mortality, and crucially, your freedom and responsibility to change course. It's an obligation, in a way, to confront that gap and choose a new meaning or recommit to an old one.
You know, we've seen in commentary some critiques that say, while Frankl's message is powerful, the how can feel elusive, like it's telling a starving man to eat. It points out the need, but doesn't hand you your specific meal.
And that's a fair point, in a way, because meaning has to be personal. Frankl gives you the framework, the why it's essential, but the what your specific meaning, that's something only you can discover or decide through your own life, your own encounters, your own responsibilities.
So the difficulty is the point, almost.
The difficulty is the measure of your freedom. He doesn't offer easy answers because life doesn't. The what isn't found in a book, even his. It's found in living.
What's fascinating here, though, is that Frankl didn't see this search for meaning as aiming for some, comfortable, relaxed state.
Not at all. He believed a certain amount of inner tension, the striving towards a worthwhile goal, towards fulfilling a potential meaning, is actually indispensable for mental health.
So that tension, that striving, is actually healthy, not something to eliminate.
It's the engine of growth, being pulled out of yourself towards something larger than yourself that's inherently challenging, maybe uncomfortable, but that's where purpose lies.
So what does this all mean for you right now, listening to this? I think Frankl's core message is that knowledge is power, especially the knowledge of your own inner freedom, your ability to choose your attitude, even when external circumstances feel overwhelming.
That freedom is always there.
Always. But let's end with a final thought, something to maybe wrestle with. Frankl observed that some camp survivors, upon returning home, actually felt bitter, disillusioned. The life they'd fought so hard to return to felt empty somehow.
The meaning they found in the struggle was perhaps more potent.
Maybe. So here's the question. If finding meaning in suffering was life-saving in the camps, could it be that embracing, or at least confronting, our everyday struggles and challenges today is actually the best defense against that modern existential vacuum? Is too much comfort, perhaps, the enemy of purpose?
Something to definitely think about.
We'll leave you with that. See you on the next Deep Dive.